Welcome to another episode of War Hero to Superhero, helping military veterans, first responders transform their lives from the prayer room to the boardroom. You know my name. You can see it down there. This show ain't about me, so we're going to go get right into it. Let me go find my mouse. Woo! All right, we are in the Superhero Battle Room. If you didn't know, these buttons are going to not be pressed by me, by a man named Martin Forster. He's going to tell me if I hacked his last name, and I did it super quick in my head, but we'll deal. A military man who has served his country and is now serving our community by spreading the message of others. Maybe you'll figure out what he does by the end of the show, and we're going to bring him on. Hey, Martin, do I have you?
Yeah, you do. It's Martin Foster, so I appreciate it, man. I appreciate the intro.
Yep, I always give that disclaimer. I try to get the names as best I can, but kind of brings a little humor. Some people want to go over and punch me in the face, so I'm glad you're laughing with me.
You'd be surprised how often my name gets mixed. Martin Foster, but people call me Mark a lot, or an email, because I'm still active duty, but I am retiring this year. But people still see me in emails, and they'll put my rank Martin. They think Martin's my last name, and so I get I get Easter, I get Foster, I get Forrest. Yes, there's a lot of.
Sounds like mine too. I get Fost, I got Fosteroo, and I'm like, really? You added a whole entire new syllable. This was like in my early days as a young airman. But we're going to get to your military career. What inspired you to join many months or many moons ago?
Yeah, 9/11. So I was a junior in college. I enlisted on September 13th of 2001. Initially, I tried to join on or sign up on September 12th of 2001, but I stood in line for basically 5 hours at the recruiter's office, and there's so many people trying to join at that time that they had to send people home from that day because the line wasn't really moving. And so, yeah, ended up showing up the next day and signed up on September 13th of 2001. But I didn't leave for basic training because there was such a backlog until November 19th until November of 2002. But that's why I joined, is because 9/11. But I'll hit 23 years this year. The reason I've stayed in for this long is the people. I love the people, man. I've met so many amazing people since I've joined the military, and man, it just it keeps pulling me back in. There's a lot of times where I thought about getting out. But again, when I started looking at that pros list, people was definitely at the very top.
Yeah, I'd say that's really difficult. I think that's been for me too. It was like the last few years. I came in before you, so I'm a tad older, at least enlisted wise.
You don't look like it. You look I didn't realize that. So good for you, man.
Yeah, I might not be as high of rank as you, but I am probably older. So I will have 25 years and 15 days when I get out 18 October. So I actually came in October 3rd of 2000. So that's interesting that you came. Let me go to a little side question of this. So 9/11, I remember myself. I was in tech school. I saw the video. I thought I was hallucinating that the towers were going down.
Yeah.
Everybody has their specific story. What was it of that particular day that made you go immediately to that office?
So did you come in right out of high school then?
I did.
Yeah, so I graduated in the year 2000, but so I was in college, and that would have been, I forget, either my sophomore or junior year of college. I do forget, but I guess sophomore. But I remember it was a Tuesday, and I didn't have class that day. And I remember I woke up at 9:00 in the morning, and because I had stayed up the night before watching Monday Night Football. It was the Denver Broncos and I think the New York Giants. And I remember this game because the Broncos had this wide receiver named Ed McCaffrey. His son's obviously in the league now, but his son, I think, or Ed McCaffrey, had like a nasty knee injury during that game. And I remember watching that. But we talk about, like, a lot of people always ask, like, where they were on 9/11. I always think about September 10th because that was the last night of the world as we knew it at that time. But I remember waking up the next day, and it was my stepdad's birthday was on September 11th. And I'm from Oklahoma, so it was 9-ish Central Time. I don't remember exactly if the first plane had already hit or not. But I remember he had the news on, and he was watching whether it was the first plane or the second plane, I guess, hit. And it was just chilling. And it's not like now where we can easily go to the internet or check your phone to confirm the accuracy. I thought it was fake. And like, what are we watching? And but what drove me to enlist was, even before, I always felt like I was destined for the military. Even before I joined, I've always had this haircut, the short haircut. I've always had a clean face. That's just always the look that I had. I did ROTC in high school, and I played sports. I loved just the camaraderie of that. But I always felt like I'm from a decent sized town in Oklahoma, but I had to get out of that town, and my grades weren't good enough to get into to school. So yeah, in summary, I just felt like this was our World War II for people of that age, where this was just a chance to sign up for something bigger than ourselves. So that's what drove me. And I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And I hated going to college. Hated it. So I knew I had to do something, and I just felt compelled in the moment and just raised my right hand.
That is very interesting. I wish there was cameras back then and smartphones just to see the surge of people getting out of their home, driving to these recruiters, seeing the lines like wrapped around and those types of things. Because I didn't get to go over and see that. For me, it was more of like the recruiter called me. He told me that there was a girl in my class that was wanting to get a ride. And I thought to myself, she's hot and I want to ask her out. And that's the reason why I came. I didn't have the righteous reason as you did to go over and say, I'm compelled to serve my country. And this is the best way I go over and do it. And you literally stood in lines to go back. Yeah. If it would have been me, it's like, oh, it's a 3-minute line, whatever. I would have been done in 2000 when I was looking at the recruiter. That is so interesting. I have not met an actual 9/11 veteran. Out of all the ones I've done interviewed, you're the first one that's told me that you're a 9/11 specific. Like they said, that enlisted because of 9/11, but not like, hey, I went the next day and I'm standing in line. Yeah, that would have been one of those things. I think I would have loved to be a fly on the wall over to interview him. Like, hey, my name is Daniel Faust, war hero to superhero. What are you doing here in the middle of the line in the back of the recruiter's office? I've never seen this before. I'd love to learn more about it. It would have been amazing.
Yeah.
So let's go jump into what your next step is. So we normally ask people how they made their transition into a transformation, but you're going to do it. So how will you make your transition into a transformation?
I don't know. That's a great question. So my retirement ceremony is in a few months, May 8th. So about 2.5 months, I guess, maybe even less, actually less than that. And my effective retirement date will be 1 November of this year. So that'll be, 23 years ish. I still want to serve. I'm still hungry to serve. So as far as my transformation, on what I'm going to do future job wise, still up in the air, but transformation for my life, I do want to focus on just being more present and a lot of reflection. So I heard a quote years ago, or YouTube video, I don't recall exactly where. It might have been from Les Brown, but he talked about on your deathbed, what if you're surrounded by all the different versions of you, all the different potential versions of you, the ghost of your potential that you didn't max out or reach your full potential. So as much as I love serving and I'm the Air Force, it's been amazing. Still have such a passion. I do want to try some other things out in my life because I'm more than just, I'm always going to be an airman. I'm always, I'll be a veteran, but there's so much more to that. Like I'm an actor, I'm a podcaster, I'm a writer. And so when I think about transformation moving forward in this next chapter of my life, and of course there's more stuff I want to do with my family, but I just wanted to evolve those other versions of me.
So it sounds like you're going to be building this in the 6 months with your terminal leave and everything else in that particular regard. So, because if I understand right, and if you're okay, me mention your rank, you're on the top of the chain on the sense of the enlisted force and kind of super busy. So getting on this podcast was like more like, okay, if I can schedule this 4 or 5 months in advance, I'm available. Because
Yeah.
a lot of the people I've met on the higher echelon, when they get there, sometimes it's the exact opposite because it becomes such an identity for them. So you're basically utilizing that 6 months, if I'm understanding right, to now build this new identity.
Yeah, and I've had the podcast for 7 years, but you mentioned my rank, and it's funny because I usually don't mention it just because I just don't, right? Because I'm a person, and um, yeah. But I've had people like, how do you balance this? Or there's even people say like, oh, like, must be nice, like this stuff. Like, we're recording right now, and it's, I'm on East Coast time, so it's 8:21. Like I try to I schedule a lot of things in the evening time, but this helps fill my cup. So even like tomorrow when I go to work, and I'm gonna be at work at 6 a.m. tomorrow, but I'm still gonna, despite how tired I will be, I'm still gonna feel so energized that I always make we always make time for what's important for us. Like there's people who say that they don't have time to work out, and finding time to work out is tough. But I use that as an example. So like you somehow make time for it. Same thing with podcasting, because podcasting to me is, I, we're at the very beginning of, we're on this cusp of everyone realizing the value and the true impact and significance of podcasting. And I've realized it for 7 years. So for me, it's important whether have the opportunity to be a guest on your amazing show, or interview people from my own podcast. I'm always going to make time for it because I see the impact that it has, and yeah, it's not easy, but it's worth it in the end.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Yeah. And it is making time. It is making time. We get to go over and make the time. Like, if when the year, I forgot about this, but I worked out with my son for an entire year. And God, it took so much time. I like working out on my own and everything else, but he goes over, it's like, you hate it. Why are you doing it? I'm like, well, I'm making time because I love you.
Yeah.
It's not because I want to do it. I make the time because of the person. So
Yeah.
we can go over and say, hey, if I care about myself, or I care about my spouse, or I care about my kids, or my airmen, or whoever it is, I will make the time. And yes, unfortunately, someone's going to get sacrificed, but you are more important than the task at hand. Now, as you're making this transition, we usually ask what current community you're serving, but you're still trying to figure this out. But let me repivot the question a little bit to contextualize it to you. What made you pivot to go over into retire and stop serving this current community in the capacity that you're doing right now? What was the tipping point for you to say, I'm going to go over and click the button, and I'm just going to go put in the paperwork, and I'm just going to be the next place?
I can tell you, like, there was, I can't give exact details, but there was a conversation I had with someone in a professional capacity, and not anyone in my unit. And I didn't like how this person talked to me. And the person is someone who outranks me. But I just thought how disrespectful and how silly this person is. And I just thought, and I was doing this person a favor. I 100% accommodated them. I just didn't like the way they treated me. And I just thought, like, like what, and after that conversation, so I write a lot. I have a journal, and I write reflections, thoughts, quotes that I hear, thoughts I come up, quotes that I come up with myself, books that I read. I'll take notes from the books, and from the books, and write them in that journal. But and I was reflecting in that journal that day, and I thought, what's my end goal here? Because so what drove me to retire was just, I was thinking, it's either, if I don't, there's not like a clean cut with the retirement from my rank. It was basically now or 4 years from now, based on some of the requirements that I would have to incur on taking an assignment. I thought I would love for my daughter to go to the same high school. I have a friend whose son went to 4 high schools in 4 years. And that's just not something, me personally, and it wasn't like they were in these exotic, cool locations. I just wanted more stability for my family. And I love the military. The Air Force has provided and will continue to provide for my family. I'm so grateful and so thankful for that. I feel like I won the lottery with my Air Force career. But I think that the Air Force, my family wasn't necessarily getting my best 5%. So I was like, whoa, I want to. And my dad died when he was 51. I'm 43. I'll be 44 this year. So I was thinking, like, man, what if I knew I was going to die in 7 years? How would I want to spend that 7 years? I would say I want to spend the most time I can with my family. And the demands, because of my rank, are continuing to be more and more and more and more and more, which takes away less time, means less time for my family. So it's just a combination of things like that. But the ultimate, what put the kind of the turning point for that decision was, I remember having a conversation with my wife on a random, I think a Wednesday or Thursday morning before I was getting ready for work. And I was telling her, like, hey, I'm thinking about hitting the button, but one thing that's holding me back is I'm going to miss my instant accessibility and connection to airmen. And that's a hard pill to swallow. And yes, people can still have it as a civilian, but it's not quite the same. But my wife said, yeah, that's true. But think about the better connection you can have with our family if you do retire. And that right there was the decision. I was like, I'm hitting the button. Because I want to make sure again that I give my family more attention and more time that they 100% deserve.
I think that's key because it does totally change. I did 12 years active duty and I left. I left right pat. I go to Arkansas. I'm out a month. My terminal leave's not even over. I call back my unit. They didn't even remember who I was. 30 days. Boom, gone. And I trained the person on the phone specifically. And they were just such a sticker shock in that particular regard. And as the months went into years and everything else, probably 0.5 to 0.2% of the population that I knew active duty, I still have connection to this day. So those people are proximity friends. That's what I come to find out. You can go to war with those people. And if, like, unless you are day in and day out, you go over and you'll know who it is. Like, I have more people from MIC that I've known, hosts that I've stayed connected with. Military Influencer Conference. So if you're going, tickets are releasing soon and speaker opportunities are launched tomorrow. So if you're already watching this episode, go to the Military Influencer Conference, apply for your speaker opportunities, and go. So get your tickets. They'll be out shortly. But yeah, those people, I've stayed connected more than people that I deployed with. Like, I don't know where to find them. And we all kind of blend in the midst when 200,000 of us retire or separate each and every year.
Yeah. Now, one more note on that is, I remember when I was stationed in Hawaii, I went to a retirement ceremony for a guy that retired after 26 years of service, a senior master sergeant. And this guy was working probably 70 hours a week. He would go in on Saturday and Sundays every week to work on admin stuff to get ahead. And he worked hard. I mean, he did anything and everything he could for people. He absolutely gave his best to people. And then, but I remember at his, but he was chasing promotion, never got promoted to chief. And I remember at his retirement ceremony, he had some regrets. And there was a ton of people at his retirement ceremony, probably 200 or 300. But 2 months later, no one ever talked about him. And like maybe a handful of people, oh yeah, he was so great. But then again, now no one ever, like, if I were to go back to that unit, no one would even remember all the things that he did. So it's kind of not that he wasted his time, but I know there's a lot of regrets and more things that he could have done with his family. So again, want to serve, but I also want to serve my family.
Yeah. Let's get into our second to last question before we wrap it up. Is we're going to talk about tough times. You've been in a long time. You probably deployed a lot of places, dealt with a lot of people, especially in the upper echelons. You deal with people problems. You know, that's what happens. Like, you go and you start in the rank and you deal with the tech, or you deal with the administrative, unless you're an administrator like me and you're always stuck with administration. Anyway, so you go on and then eventually it becomes people problems. And sometimes it becomes corporate problems. So when those tough times and pressure comes, what is your secret fuel to go and deal with it?
I still struggle. I really do. I mean, I still balancing stress, and I still get super frustrated and don't manage it the best at, all the time. And I guess if someone asked me, like, like what you asked me, like what my secret fuel is when the pressure and tough times come, I read that book, this black journal that I've had for at least 10 years, and just various quotes from authors and whoever. But there's a few quotes that I constantly go back to is, we don't grow despite the storms, we grow because of the storms. And so I do think, like, there's been, and I've had some really personal tough stories that, I don't necessarily want to share right now, but some tough times in my military career where, looking back, I'm glad they did happen because it made me that much stronger, and it taught me lessons which I was then able to use to help teach, mentor, and influence someone else. The other thing too is, I remember in 2019, I wrote something in the journal I keep mentioning. There's a couple things I wrote. One was, and it was actually all together on the same page. How do you catch a falling star? How do you fix a broken heart that's been shattered into a million pieces? And lastly, what do you say to someone that feels like they're not living, only just merely existing? And there's just but for me, I think that, and my answer to those questions was through God. Because there was definitely some rough patches in my career, 2018 through 2020 specifically. But what helped me is, I do believe in God, and that's, for me, that's been my secret fuel, I guess. Short answer.
I think that's a beautiful answer, because everything is, only the creator can restore that, and can restore the heart, can catch the falling star to basically take you from nothing and bring you to thriving. That's why we started Learn and Live, is not just to go from surviving, is to go from thriving. And the only basis of that is God. Because when you're at the point and the deployments hit, or you're about to get a divorce, or you're dealing with death, even unaliving, these are some of the things I've gone through. The only thing that keeps it together is God. So I thought that was a beautiful picture. And I like those quotes. So hopefully that black journal eventually gets published. Hopefully, as you go over and put those quotes in there. So our
actually,
last
sorry, real quick, Dan, there was, I went to the MIC, the same conference you were at a few months ago. And that was someone I met, and that I was telling them about, they saw me with my journal just coincidentally, and that person is a publisher. And that's so that's actually something I'm looking for the next chapter of my life too, is somehow putting this into a book. Yeah, so I'm excited about that.
That's really cool. There was a bunch of great publishers. EP House was out there, and a couple other ones of that nature. So I've been doing some connections with those at the MIC too. So we're getting some books traditionally published, because we're self-published, but now we're getting serious here. So we're going to start traditionally publishing. So that's amazing that you're publishing too. And that's another part of transformation, is getting the stories out there. So let's get into the last one. Oh, I put this accidentally somehow. Boop, there we go. Fix that. There we go. Live fixing. 3 superhero tactics. If you've ever watched our show, this is not a sticker shock question, but if you haven't, then it might be a little thought to your mind. So I want you to think of your retirement ceremony. We'll contextualize this a little bit. You're going to get on the stage, and let's say they only give you 90 seconds. Obviously, they don't do that. If it's your own retirement, you can get 90 minutes. People are dying inside if you're at 90 minutes. But if you only had 90 seconds and you just wanted to wow them, what 3 superhero tactics would you give those next airmen as you're leaving the stage?
I think super speed. I'm a big comic book person, and I've always loved the Flash. I've always thought the Flash was cool. The second one is invisibility. And I think sometimes there's times I wish I could be invisible, not just because it's more so I can just process and regroup and just focus on me in the moment and what I need. So invisibility. And the last one is actually from my favorite superhero. Is I've always loved the Green Lantern, and it'd be that power ring. Actually, I think he carries it. Is it on his right hand? I forget. The Green Lantern, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Green Lantern, but with that ring, basically, if he can imagine it, it can happen. Whether it's a giant boxing glove to punch someone, or building, or just or making a giant tidal wave, it would just be, again, that Green Lantern power ring. So if they can think it, they can create it.
Sounds like the culmination of your career that way. Go and get your self time to go reflect and to get away. Go over and get time to be creative and get time to just to go over and just to get her done and get it done fast. So that's like, I think General Brown's, was it CQ Brown's Accelerate, Change, or Lose? That thing haunted me for years. If I ever interview the guy, I'm like, I still love you, sir, but that thing haunted me for 2.5, 3 years. I saw that quote on the wall every day, and I'm like, there's certain things in my career that accelerated change and loss for me.
Yeah.
So, but thank you, Martin, for going over and sharing your wisdom. Thank you for sharing a culmination of 23 years on our show. We're going to give you the floor one more time if you want to talk about next steps, or maybe you want to give a CTA or close us out with a quote, but the floor is now yours.
Yeah. So for everyone, just follow me. I'm trying to do great things. And the podcasting, I love podcasting because podcasting, in essence, is capturing those special moments in life. I think it's almost like to me, podcasting is almost a nostalgia, and it's the last frontier and tie in to our past, the way we used to connect with people in the past. So if you just want to help me evolve the show and grow, just follow, subscribe, share, like all those different things for podcast. And I use my platform to just help share the stories of other people. Uh, if there's a quote I could end with, it would be, "The days are long and the years are short, and tomorrow quickly becomes yesterday." The universe.